up at Michigan.
Oh! Michigan!
I mean, there's been some interesting stuff happen to this Ohio State team from Michigan the last couple of years. You know, more specifically last year coming in here. They're saying it's not just this year this has been happening.
Whoa.
They said this has been going on for a while. Stealing signs. My thing is, I think everybody is trying to steal the other team's signs. In football, in any sport that is competitive. It's kind of an unwritten rule. If you're going to give us that advantage, we're going to take it. So whenever they start saying, well, it's much more than that, and it's like something that's punishable and everything, and they're investigating it, you would have to think that it would involve something deeper. Like for the Astros, it was the trash cans and remember
exoskeleton.
They had the exoskeleton on. For the New England Patriots, it was they were filming them and then breaking them down.
Smart.
And it's like certainly a step above what everybody else morally was willing to do. I think. Now, there's probably other people recording as well that didn't get caught, but I don't think everybody was doing it. That's why it was kind of like all right, you can't be doing that. But if you can figure it out on the spot, if you can go and tell what they're doing, that's an advantage. That is you being better at the sport than the other person, is how a lot of people view it. So they're thinking it has to be one of those things, is what it seems like to me, AJ.
So they confiscated somebody's computer, I know, within the Michigan program, right?
Whoa.
Yes, the Marine or
the Marine assistant coach, right, or assistant scout.
I mean, there's a guy that'll be joining us in about a minute with more of the information. We should wait until that guy whose tweet is actually up right now.
A low-level staffer with a military background.
Yeah,
what is that about?
I don't know if he was a Marine or something, but like, remember the Colts told us they hired a former Navy SEAL to be a part of their interview process whenever they're going in, because they have like special skills when they're doing something. I wonder if there's like an interpreter from, or like if one of this guy's like big time skill sets with his brain is like, yeah, you show me a couple things, I can just match them up completely. I think there's a web, but I mean, there is a lot of allegations happening and it's getting loud. And I think like the Ohio State people are probably very interested in this, but everybody, this is one of the best teams in the country. They could go win the national championship. How will it get handled, you think, AJ?
I don't know, because I don't know what the NCAA is anymore. I don't know what kind of power they have. So what the NCAA announced that they are investigating them, but what does that mean? What kind of power do they have? I don't know. I don't think they have the same power they once did.
Yeah, how far back? Aren't quick either. Those are not quick investigations.
Oh yeah, the NCAA notoriously really quick workers. Tez Walker just got back.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? That was like 3 months in the making to make a decision that seemed pretty easy for all of us. But this is coming fresh off what? The free hamburger during recruiting?
Yep. Exactly. So I mean, the NCAA's already got an axe to grind against Harbaugh. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of try to drag this thing as long as they can.
It got real loud real quick, didn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now is a man who you just go, Pete, my man.
Get over here.
We messed this up, Pete. That's 100% on us. Anyway, Ty has to go use the restroom here in Ohio. Had some of those Buckeyes this morning. Ain't that right, Ty? All right, Ty, have a good one. Pete, the authority. Pete. That needs to become a thing.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, I am never going to be more pumped of being a part of something than whenever a crowd of college football people start chanting your name just like on a regular basis because you have all the inside news.
People love ankle sprains. So
yeah, that's what you're all about. But you know everybody at every place. Now let's talk about this Michigan thing, because obviously you're connected everywhere. The coaches, commissioners, I assume you talk to, everything. Whenever it gets to this level of like have to be talked about when it comes to stealing signs, which I think is a part of the game, everybody kind of understands that. They think it's much more serious, like with the Astros, like what happened with the Patriots. What are we thinking here with this Michigan thing, and what is the inevitable outcome in your eyes at this moment as we sit right here?
So let's start with where we are right now, Pat. We reported late last night on ESPN.com that one of the centerpieces of this investigation is a low-level Michigan staffer by the name of Connor Stallions. No relation to Boston Connor.
There might be, though.
That's what sources tell me anyway.
He is related because he served his country.
He did serve his country, so he is
Thank you for the service, Connor.
Yes, that's right. He is a former Marine. He was educated at the Naval Academy, and there was NCAA interest in his computer. The process of procuring that is underway from what our sources said. So the difference now, you talked earlier about sign stealing, right? In high school, you tap your head for a blitz, tap your elbow for counter tray, whatever it is. That's all perfectly legal. And sideline to sideline, all that stuff, obviously perfectly legal. What has happened here and why this has risen to the level of the Big Ten acknowledging Michigan, one of its biggest brands, and the NCAA having an active investigation is it has transcended that. Opponent scouting is what it is. Now, In the NFL, for example, they send an assistant GM or a pro scout. You know, the Colts are playing the Panthers the next week. They send somebody to the press box with binoculars to do it. Perfectly legal. In college, illegal since 1994.
Oh.
And so what has happened is they have seen, yes, that is what they're alleging. That's correct.
Pete, hey, good crowd work.
Nice. So what has happened here is they are looking into an operation, essentially. And our sources said it was an elaborate operation of what Michigan had and how they did. Now, again, the electronic part of this is key, Pat. We don't know specifically whether signs were captured electronically. But if you are going to opponent scouting, I certainly think that's something the NCAA is going to be looking into. You're probably not just going with a notebook in a Fort Ticonderoga #2 and like writing down elbow tap, head slap, etc.
Pete, do we know if he voluntarily turned his computer in, or do they have the power to? How does that work? I remember when they wanted Tom Brady.
I'm going to go a little bit NCAA's with you here, but it's usually a cooperative investigation. So one thing, there's a couple telltale signs here. One is the Big Ten announced there's an NCAA investigation. That happens next to never. And the Big Ten did that because they had to alert upcoming opponents that their signals could have been compromised through illicit methods. So to me, the signal flare as a reporter that this is like 5-alarm serious and not just coaches complaining about stealing signs. Let's face it, coaches complain about stealing signs. We heard it for years when they played Clemson. Brent Venables, and I'd written about it extensively, was the master of stealing signs, right? But this is to a completely different level because of what's alleged with the going to opponents' games.
So many people that were coaching against them were like, these sons of bitches got our signs. They know exactly what we're doing from the first play. And then they got like a group chat together, and they're like, we need to report this? Or how does something like this come to be?
So it's really interesting, Pat. The $1 million question, and I've talked to a lot of people in the last 24 hours that no one knows the answers to, is how did not only the NCAA become aware of this, but how did they become so aware of it, they launched an investigation when this is something that's been complained about for years, and the Big Ten got a glimpse of their information and sounded the alarm and said publicly, we're going to take our second biggest brand, not our first biggest brand. We're going to take our second biggest brand, and we're going to put them on public notice. All right. And you also have Jim Harbaugh under NCAA investigation, so there's a little bit of double jeopardy here too.
There's an AJ Hawk chant in the middle of some very breaking news.
Come on,
coming out of Pete.
Man.
I appreciate it. Go ahead, AJ.
So what happens from here? And obviously someone snitched from the inside, I would guess, right?
I mean, there's a lot of theories, AJ. I don't know. I don't know how this information
emerged.
Who's your source,
but
Pete? If
tell us who your
my source is Big Tex. Remember in Dallas, Big Tex was over my shoulder, the big bobbing head. That's who my source is. For there to be a preponderance of information, it'll be fascinating to find out where it came from.
What did you just say?
Hold on. Preponderance, Pat.
Hey, you're damn right.
Is your graphics guy here to put the dictionary definition up? I appreciate that. That guy does a 4.2, man. He's great.
Zito, yes.
He does good. Zito does great work.
4.2 is right.
Yeah, brain fingertips for Zito, 4.2, maybe even quicker. Preponderance, the quality or fact of being greater in number, quantity, or importance. I mean, that's a superb word.
Yeah, it is.
Just to
Truly.
drop into this particular situation. You're one of one, Pete. Anything else we need to know about?
Well, I think going forward is a fascinating question. You made a great point earlier, Pat. The NCAA is notoriously slow in how they investigate things. From 20 years of covering NCAA investigations, I'd be stunned if there was some action before the end of this season. So I think the question fans want to know is, will this impact Michigan's season? And my hunch through history, not knowing what's been alleged specifically here and what kind of evidence they have, is I'd be pretty surprised. What I do know is Jim Harbaugh, who still has to have his last NCAA situation adjudicated, there's obviously recruiting violations alleged. He's already done a 3-game self-imposed suspension, but the NCAA still hasn't run that case yet. So now this is another case that comes into play here. And it's going to be fascinating timing with Michigan, presumably, a playoff caliber team, as they've been the last 2 seasons, and Jim Harbaugh potentially having options to coach professional football as he's had last year.
Oh, that would be, if he was to go and there's actual sanctions to come, would the sanctions still be cracked down on Michigan if the whole coaching staff and everything that was doing it is no longer there?
I guess it would have to be what the sanctions are. Sanctions is like a general term, right? Harbaugh specifically would be in line for more sanctions in this because there's a head coach control rule. So it basically says, it'd be like you as the head of this show, Pat, have to be responsible for all the people on your show.
Oh, no, you should hear
That's
this.
a lot of exposure.
We talk a lot of vaccination stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's hot in the streets right now.
So when you're a head coach in
That's on
college
me.
football,
Please. Anyway.
when you're a head coach in college football, you are presumed responsible for the actions of your entire staff, even if they can't prove you didn't have direct knowledge. And that's where Jim Harbaugh could end up in the crosshairs if this thing pushes forward at the pace that it appears to be going.
Go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, Pete, there's a 2-touchdown spread down in Tallahassee between Duke and Florida State. A lot of us are wondering if Riley Leonard is going to be the quarterback for Duke in that game.
That's a good question. We'll know more about that on College Game Day tomorrow.
Okay, good plan.
But I would say that
What time? What time?
The original timeline of Riley Leonard's return. This would be on the very early side of that. The very early side. And remember, if you like Riley Leonard as your quarterback, you like him running the ball.
Yes, you do.
Correct?
Yeah, he's a great athlete.
He's a great dual threat guy. You played the awesome basketball highlights on the show.
He's the
So I think
dog.
the question that Duke and Riley Leonard are going to have to answer is, can all of that Riley Leonard be back? They obviously have a big game at Louisville next week, too. So game time decision officially, Tom?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much to Pete.
Pete,
Thamel. Thank you, brother. Pete, that's really good work.
That boy Pete. Thanks, Pete. That boy Pete.
What an honor that was.
Super chill. Shoes untied.
Yeah. Oh, he's hanging.
Super chill. Dress shoes, nice dress shoes, untied.